listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's show. How's everyone doing tonight? How's chat doing? Let's see here. I should load chat up. Yes. Let's see. Is Gene here? We got to wait for Gene before we start the recording. Gene is here.
Recording in progress.
There we go. We can get the recording. Looks like I need to fix the. Let's see here. I need to fix the. There, the names real quick. Andrew's name is hidden. We can't have that. At least it looks hidden to me. So make sure it's correct. No, that's Ashley's name. My
name's Ashley.
Guest name. There we go. Whoops. Delete. Andrew. There we go. Get that centered up. Yeah, that was weird. Let's get that. Jump. There we go. That looks better. I hope that looks better for everybody. All right, let's see here. Okay, so the social is out on Twitter X and over on Blue Sky. Let me send the post announcement real quick over on the Discord so I can ping everybody 30 times, let them know that the show has started. Which is, I think it at least shoots it off twice when I do it that way. Muted? What's muted?
You said shooted?
Shoot it off. Yeah, shoot it off.
Shooted with an ED.
Shoot it off. Words, you can do whatever you want to with words.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You can. They're fun that way.
The English teacher in me is really struggling with that, but okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, someone made up English at some point, so.
That's correct.
And it keeps changing.
We've been rewatching The Office lately, and there's so many different little words that Michael Scott just mangles, and it just flies right by, but I love it every time.
It is. You miss too many of them. That's what's great about rewatching, because he says so many things that. Not superstitious. I'm a little stitious.
All right, a little stitious. That's right. It makes me think of The Simpsons. Me fail English. That impossible.
Yeah.
That's the one. All right, excellent. Well, we have started the recording. The social is out. So happy to have everyone here with us tonight. Please do let me know how the volumes go. It looks pretty good right now with maybe it was slightly hot. I'll take it down quite a little bit light there. Welcome to everyone who's joining us tonight for the first time. If you are, or if you're watching this on replay, we come to you live pretty much every Monday night talking about the previous fantasy round and giving previews for the upcoming fantasy round a whole week in advance. So right as the embers are still cooling from the previous round, we are going out there and making guesses. If you do like that kind of content, please do like and subscribe here on YouTube, or if you're watching us later, thank you so much for doing that. You can also catch our podcast if audio is more of your speed, but always happy to have people join us for the lives. You can chat with some amazing people like Eric and Gene and Patrick and all people I see in the chat right now. Congrats, Eric, on the third place finish there. So I see the Canadian flag. Give some props there for that. So, but we are here to talk about fantasy. We are happy to have Andrew with us, and so we will just go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 6 of the 2025 MLS Fantasy season. Brought to you by Field View, a 100% app quality of life increase for MLS fantasy players. If you've not checked it out, it is back and we are so thankful. That, and also, not just actually, brought to you by our amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Find out more over at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our special guest, Andrew Tingkang from as Ashley says, because she made this rundown, the league's greatest independent outlet, Sounders at Heart. How are you all doing tonight?
Sounder at Heart.
Sounder at Heart. I'm sorry. See, You it's I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to make it like all of you all. It's everyone.
Yeah.
It's everyone out there. So
we are.
you are we are Sounder. There you go.
I don't remember if they have Sounders at Heart redirecting to the right website or not.
They should.
Well, if they don't,
we are going to cause a 100% increase in the need for that redirect tonight. That is what's going to happen. So yes, you guys are already putting some of your scores in chat. So happy to see the good results. But we're going to start real quick, as we've done with everyone this year. Just a little quick Q&A for Andrew here. He was on the show, I believe, for the first time last year. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah, I think sometime in September
of last year. He's been on the Discord for a few years, though. Writes fantasy articles over at Sounder at Heart. And so just as we've chatted with everyone, can you let us know, and the people listening, how did you get into MLS Fantasy, and what's been your experience playing the game?
I've been playing fantasy football for a long time, probably at least 20 years. And so when I started following MLS closely with the Sounders joining, I decided to start playing some fantasy there and had a lot of fun with it. Wrote some articles in like 2014, 2015 back then, and my interest kind of waned. But last year we had the Sound at Heart Discord go up as part of the website going independent, and we had a nice little community there. And so I wanted to share my old insights on fantasy and kind of got back into it and started writing my articles again.
Well, we are so happy that you are doing that again, because it's always nice to have more fantasy voices out there for people to get advice from. Can you tell us what your general approach is to building your fantasy lineup?
I think the two things I do most often is I try and look for bonus points. I like those that kind of give you a nice floor, and it can also often be an indicator of who might be underperforming some of their stats and might regress to mean once they actually start getting those assists off of those key passes or getting some goals off of the shots they're taking. Plus, if they don't actually score, then it gives you a nice set of points. Like Benteke this week, he didn't have a goal, but he still had 6 points, which was only one less than Kuipers, who did have a goal. So it's nice to be able to chase those as a nice floor in your points. I also like to pick maybe one or two homer players every week. Somebody I just want to do well, even if maybe they're not the most logically correct person to take.
Sure.
Sometimes it lines up, like everybody thought Rusnak was going to do well last week. At least I certainly did. That didn't work out quite as well, but I've taken Georgie Munungu a few times this year, and that has been not the best, but I think his breakout's coming still.
Ashley has a little bit different take when it comes to homers, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure. Final question: what advice would you give to any new players who are starting their fantasy journey in 2025?
Probably, we're 5 weeks in. Hopefully, you've picked up some new things to try, maybe a keeperoo or a switcheroo. But it's still a long season. There's still, the slate will be wiped clean if you want to try and do the Fantasy Champions League later in the year. So even if maybe your overall rank isn't that high, there's still a lot of opportunities for you to catch up or to join some of the elite groups if you are able to do well later. So just kind of enjoy it while it goes, and hopefully you'll improve as you go.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for sharing your insights with us tonight. So let's just jump right into it with our just fantasy-focused recap, the takeaways. How'd you do with round 5? Just kick us off, Andrew.
Yeah, so my big surprise and disappointment was Sounders losing 0-0. That was not my favorite result of the week, and I was really hoping for fantasy purposes that Rusnak would get his points. I did have Fry and Reagan, so I got the clean sheet, which was nice. But overall, I had 85 points, which I think was okay, especially considering Evander was the only person I had on my team that scored a goal. It was really the clean sheets from the Sounders, and then Evander, I got Lovitz, and then I got a whole bunch of bonus points from like Dreyer and Benteke, Rusnak, and Jordy kind of chipped in a little bit. So it was okay. I think I could have done a lot better. Probably my biggest mistake was going with Brooks Lennon and Daniel Lovitz as a defensive pair, whereas I was also kind of looking at going with Kai Wagner and Josh Bauer. Bauer was someone I'd identified as probably the most likely guy to replace Andy Nahar, but I didn't kind of stick with him. The Wagner-Bauer pairing would have only been 0.2 more in terms of value than Lennon and Lovitz cost me, and I lost out a lot of points by not going in that direction. So that was a little frustrating that I didn't, go that way, but it worked out okay. I was really surprised that maybe the Timbers are pretty good, winning away in Colorado like they did.
Let's not get carried away, Andrew, but okay.
Well, they're not that bad if they can, get a result
Correct.
like that.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see RSL lose another home game. I was disappointed I didn't get in on Orlando's Goal Fest. I didn't have anyone from Orlando, and that hurt. And I wasn't quite bold enough to take Kuipers at Vancouver. That was a game I thought Chicago had a pretty good chance with Vancouver's absences and kind of the way that Chicago had been playing away. And instead I took Choupo-Moting over with New York, and he wasn't even on penalty kicks anymore like he was the week before. So that was a little frustrating. But, we move on. Going forward, I think Evander is probably back. He seems pretty well integrated. He's got 2 straight weeks with double-digit key plays, and also Kansas City and Montreal are probably continue to be teams to target. I'm not sure either of them are improving anytime soon, even with Montreal making their manager change today.
Absolutely. You never know what's going to happen with that little manager switch bump right there. Ashley, what about you?
Yeah. I scored 97, which was still a little disappointing to me, just from some kind of individual choices that I made and some like not just things not following my gut and kind of thinking in a group mind, and just I was frustrated with myself, not with my players. But my overall value is up to almost 121, so at least I'm making money. I know that always really pisses Reid off, but it just happens naturally. My biggest whoopsie was I wanted a piece of that Charlotte defense, and again, aforementioned, I had the money, but for some reason I went Privet over Maladna or anybody else from that back line, and he got a red card and scored a -1. And so that was tough because there was no reason behind it. I could have gone with someone cheaper, and I had the money to go more expensive, but that was just who I landed on. So that was pretty frustrating. But I just had yet another round where I need to just stop. Not that there's not great resources and people to talk to, but when I go back each week to remake these rundowns and I look at the team I said I was going to do on Monday and the way that I've tinkered in changes and what I actually did, every single round, my first glance and thought team that I make for the podcast has done better than the team I actually ended up with. And so I need to just listen to my gut a little bit better. And I know we've briefly talked about that. Tyler and I talked about it a lot last week as well. So I won't spend too much time on it, but that's what's getting me down. Some surprises was so many defenders scoring goals this week. It was very nice to see Aaron Long got on the score sheet. Bauer, like you said, Zimmerman, Glavinovich for Philadelphia. Lots of more than normal defenders scoring and keeping clean sheets. So that was pretty impressive from a fantasy perspective. Portland just manhandling Colorado. And again, that's not a MLS statement. From a fantasy perspective, that was wild. I think a decent amount of people were pretty high on Jordy Mihailovic. nothing from that. He, a home game against a conference rival. I really thought Colorado Navarro was on a lot of people's radar this week. So, for them to not produce was pretty interesting. To be less, butthurt about the result, I'd say what was surprising to me was Houston being able to get a clean sheet in Seattle. Houston has not been the best defensive team. There've been a couple of cheap options to pick up on their defense that perhaps now might see a little bit of a price rise depending on what they're able to pull out, which I'm not crazy optimistic about this round. But that's definitely something to note. But yeah, I was disappointed in Mukhtar and Rusnak. I believe they were two of the leading captains, chalk captains for the round, and Rusnak did not produce like a lot of people thought. I had a big debate in one of our own little threads, and kind of got taken out for my opinion that Rusnak might not do as well.
Whoa. We did not take you out. We explained to you why we liked Rusnak.
Yeah,
no one
bested by 1 point. So I did feel vindicated, because I always feel like a bad Sounders fan when I talk about Sounders players in fantasy, because I am not always high on their consistency. So it really pissed me off as a fan, but it made me feel slightly vindicated as a friend. So, and then, yes, I won't go too much on Benteke. Second week in a row without scoring after scoring the, opening, 4 in a row. And then Evander, I feel great. I mean, doing well. I personally have not bought into Kuipers. I think the one round I picked him up was the week he got a red card or blanked or something. So I warn everyone now that I may pick him, and so be careful. But scoring away and doing well, that's something we need to definitely pay attention to. And then just the midfielders putting on a show this week, I thought was pretty impressive. Ojeda going off, Forsberg finally going off. He's been on a lot of people's radars for other rounds, but this was a good one for him. And then, Yeboah making good as well. Just a little more projected consistency, I would say, from fantasy players this round.
So I've gone back through the chat, and I'm just gonna be straightforward here with what we're talking about with this captain thing, because I mean it's great points, and so that we started
good banter, I should say.
It is. It's good banter. Yes. But we started talking about the captain right shortly after the DC Orlando game locked, going on back and forth between the two of them. You were questioning Rusnak. Good to know, but everything had already locked for some of the other options that we were looking at.
I was never considering anybody but the two of them.
Yeah, but we went back and forth with everything. Christian and I were chatting right there, and I made the comment, and I stand by this in the captain's video I put out last week as well. Rusnak was my number one, looking at Seattle on rest, going up against a Houston team that had given up 8 goals over 4 games, and so both pretty well intact, but it seemed to me like it lent more towards Seattle, and he had the underlying numbers, which still did do him well during this game, which I'll touch on in just a second. And so that's why I went with Rusnak. Number 2 for me were the Nashville guys, and that was the comment that I made in the chat was because you were looking at them, and I said for me the Nashville picks were more flyers, and that being Sturge and Mukhtar, and it was based on their numbers, those underlying numbers, key passes, the assists that they're getting. That's what made them tempting to me for my team, because I had both of them, and their matchup. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. And then I said to you, go with what you feel. So no shade right there. Yet all of us agreed that had it been earlier in the conversation, earlier in the day, that talking about Ojeda or Benteke would have been higher on our list before some of those options. So
well, and all props back to Reid, because I had not considered Evander this week. And before that game, I just liked the formation, and Atlanta looked rotated enough in a way that I felt like he could do something. And Reid did point me in the right direction there. So I will give you.
We never say Tyler. I know Tyler was talking big about Evander. I think he captained.
I just meant picking Evander. He wasn't.
Yes.
So many to get him on your team. I liked. He wasn't even someone I would had considered yet. But what a good week to
and I stand by that, Reid, as well.
Into him.
I know Evander was one of the top 2 captains this week. I mean, he had the highest score of a single player. So anybody with the 16 did well for you. But for me, I positioned them on the bench, and this was just a strategy thing because in my mind, there was no downside there. You never can pick who's going to be the captain, but in my mind, it was they play the first game. If they don't hit, I've got the other backup options there. If they do hit, I know who I'm going to scrub out to force the auto-roo. So there was no downside there for me with having them. You never know who's the captain. So there it is. I'll do the quick recap for myself. 93 points, which I thought was solid for the round. Probably more in the kind of middle of the pack, depending on where you are there. I had a few little flubs. Again, my captain could have been better. I had Navarro as well. That didn't do great for me. But overall, pleased with the team. I felt like I'm kind of getting back into the group and looking at that. And 118.5 is the budget that I built here. My real disappointment was my head-to-heads because I went back to my head-to-heads. I went down to 93 after I think I had 95, and then point adjustments came in. But I went to the head-to-heads, and I lost all but one. And I was just like, dang it. This was a great score. I've seen some, or a good score, and I've seen some stuff. Why have I spent so much time creating some of the most competitive head-to-head leagues in this league? So I hope you all are having fun in that because they are tight. Like a lot of people I'm looking in chat had 100-point scores, triple digits. Absolutely possible.
Lots of good triple digits,
Fantastic scores people had. You should not be ashamed at the 80s and 90s that you got because those are solid scores with what was going on. And that's the theme of the few extra little takeaways I'll add to what Andrew and Ashley have already said is this was a call-up round. So a lot of things were different. Lots of things were rotated. And that limits some of the key takeaways that we can really glean from fantasy-wise. Some of it is seeing people come back into form, like Andrew mentioned with Evander coming on, that he and I both saw with seeing Nashville get some more consistency there with some of those guys that we like to target. But the biggest takeaway you can have is look back to this round. Bookmark this, say whatever you want to do. Look back to this round the next time there's a call-up window because you're going to see some of the players who got time and see how they were interacting with their teams, how their points were being generated, who wasn't there, who's stepping up. That's the biggest takeaway you can have for this round is just seeing who the other options are because it's going to change. These players' value is likely not to increase very much, and so it'll be easier to fill them into your team when we go forward. So that's the biggest takeaway for me. Surprise, I 100% agree. I did not see that with Sounders and very close to it. Benteke not getting as big of a score as I thought there could have been there with that goal fest. Navarro was also a disappointment. I thought he would do a little bit better in that game, but I didn't feel good enough about Colorado to go all in with Jordy as well. But yeah, general takeaways, like I just said, just take this with what it is, the call-up round. Look at the guys, Evander, some of the Nashville guys, just people who are starting to find their form, get their legs underneath them a little bit. Great to see that, especially coming in with full teams back. But even still, with people gone, clean sheets, so erratic this year. So erratic, and for me, it's just underlying the importance of looking at those underlying numbers, the key passes, the crosses, just the actions that the players are doing that are going to give them consistent, a high floor. For when people are missing, they're still going to generate those opportunities and those options. And that's just the big important takeaway I have for this round. So anything else you all want to add before we move on?
No, that covers it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All the great scores in chat. Yes, we will give the shout out to Tyler, who was on the show last week. He did captain Evander. Be sure to check out his article with it. Maybe we'll have him add a differentials captain this next round to have it there. But so happy to have these results. So happy to have players coming back into their regular team. So we have a more normal round 6 coming up. And we'll talk about the players who you can target going into that round right after this. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, no, Tyler totally did. He totally captained Evander, and I forget where that was in our chat, but he said, I went Evander C. Let's go. And bold captain. To be fair, every captain is risky except Messi. So we'll see. We'll find out.
Except Messi.
That's what
Messi's the riskiest captain. Are you kidding me? Is he in the country? Is he gonna play? Is he gonna not?
Is it too cold? Is the grass too hard? Is the grass too wet?
At least they're not playing Sunday this week.
It's true.
I mean, yes. I looked at that and I was like, thank God.
Got that. Let's get the other social out for this round. I got worried there for a second, Andrew. I saw your cat messing around your TV, and I was like, it's coming down.
Oh, it's mounted on the wall. It's not going anywhere.
I don't know if they're like my cats. Let me take it down. Let's see here.
I miss cats.
Round 16.
They're good.
Spencer's allergic. My husband's allergic, so
that's unfortunate.
Never again. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Social is out again. If you would be so kind as to retweet those or share re-sky those. I don't know what you call it.
Oh, you sound so old when you do
that. I have yet to see what it's called.
And they're skeets.
They're skeets? Okay.
Oh, shut up. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll just be old then, and because that just makes me think about Doug. So we'll go with there.
Well, that's fair.
Like Skeeter?
Yeah. Makes me think about Doug just to say that. So
makes me think of Little John. And if you don't know, then you don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody. Okay. Well, there we go. That's out there. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Get into talking about who we're captaining. Christian, 108 points. That's right. Good job, Christian. Okay. Hello and welcome back. We're talking about players who we are targeting early for round 6. But first, let's talk about just the games that are coming up. A little quick housekeeping right here. Everything starts on Saturday, March 29th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Toronto versus the Whitecaps. And also, very shortly after, with New England versus Red Bulls. As far as your Otteroo planning, this is pretty much your typical Apple TV starting time with the games at 2:30, 2:30, 4:30, and then some 7:30s, 8:30s, 10:30s all mixed in there. Very easy to get a few matchups on the day of, but on the Sunday we have 4 teams playing. We have St. Louis versus Austin at 2:15 and Portland versus Houston at 7 o'clock. So everyone's back in the mix, but planning your switcheroos and your Otteroos should not be too difficult right here. Open Cup is going on. Be sure to go over and check out the MLS Fantasy Boss mega reference. There we go. I almost said differentials. That's not it. The mega reference over at MLS Fantasy Boss in the tools section to get some idea of who is there and who might be impacted. Maybe some tired legs if we're even really there yet. But also international duty. We have players who are returning. There was a list that was shared in chat of a few players who may still not be there or might be just on the list of maybe play depending on when they come back. But just keep an eye on the call-ups and the lineups. But almost pretty much everyone is back in the mix this week. But please do keep in mind that we are back to the next round of CONCACAF Champions Cup very, very soon.
Oh.
Yeah, 4-1. We've got Vancouver at home. And then LAFC versus Miami on 4-2. So keep an eye on those teams, see what they do. Just check the lineups. I know we will once again. I can already see this is going to be the brought to you by next week. It's going to be Messy Watch. Once again, Messy Watch. So we'll see what happens. But just to keep those things in mind, and you will be set. Go to MLS Fantasy Boss's Discord channel, and we have lineups that pop up right there. So you can see that as the easy way to know who is playing and how to make any slight adjustments you might need. And don't forget to check out the mega reference while you're there. All right, enough of that shameless plug. Let's start talking about players who we are targeting going into round 6, starting as always with keepers and defenders. Andrew, kick us off.
Well, I'm going to start off with a little spice. I may be a little lost in the sauce, but I kind of like New England's defense this week. Maybe Ivicic and Fofana as early plays. They are one of the few teams in the league. They've only played 4 games, but their expected goals against is still under 1 per game. And the Red Bulls have been good at home, but they still haven't scored a goal on the road. So I think I might take a shot with New England early. with Ivacic and Fofana, assuming that's who's starting. But I like them this week. For the rest of it, I'm having a hard time picking good clean sheet targets. I'm actually also kind of wondering if Chicago Fire finally hold a clean sheet. Their expected goals against is not very good, and they've been giving up goals, but they also only have had one home game so far. And Montreal is still on the road. They've still got, I think, 2 more games to go before they make their home debut. So, there could be some value there with Chicago. They're not, since they're at um, since they're in the central time zone, it's a little more difficult to do a switcheroo with them. But there's somebody I'm considering. Beyond that, maybe Minnesota. I kind of like them as a clean sheet potential this week. So Dane St. Clair should be back, and Dugan would probably be my pairing there. And then beyond that, I'm kind of wondering if on Sunday there's a nice little 0-0 draw with St. Louis and Austin. That both those teams have been pretty decent defensively, and St. Louis especially has not been great at offense. So I'm not sure about that. Uh, and then beyond that, I kind of like Wagner again this week. He had a clean sheet and an assist, and going down there into Miami. Philadelphia is going to have to be on the offense because I don't know how they're going to survive if they're just on defense the whole game. So I could see him picking up a good number of crosses, and not a high hopes for a clean sheet there, but maybe some bonus points and an assist like he's been doing much of this year.
Ashley.
I am struggling with defenders so far, just because I have some little inklings here and there, and I can't decide which way I want to turn. I actually don't hate that New England shout, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm currently going Lunt to Stuver, or honestly, Ulstari, because who cares at this point? Like Reid has been saying, you can't lose money when they're already 4.0. So
it's true.
I don't know. And that's a keeper situation to watch because of the timing. But definitely not something I'm against. I like Vags. I like Duggan for Minnesota. I lean for Watts over Totland for St. Louis for one of the later games. And then I like FC Dallas, and honestly, it's hard to say to another Sounders fan, but I kind of like San Jose. Sounders are struggling to score. Historically, San Jose is a tougher team even when they aren't playing well for the Sounders on the road. So it's not something I'm saying no to. The timing could work out as just if my bench hasn't hit, that's who I play defender situation. But like I said at the top, I have a weird gut feeling about Portland and New England defenders. They're cheap because they generally haven't done great, but they are doing better, and New England especially has done well at home. So not maybe the smartest choice, but just with the matchups, I'm wondering if maybe I might take a flyer on either of those teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I did not enjoy picking defenders and keepers this week.
Yeah,
it's been very sporadic with clean sheets. It's been kind of hard, and so for me, I was really looking at some underlying numbers of players to see who's getting some assists, who's getting some key passes. I'm still focusing on just budget at the back of if they get some points, that's great, but I'm hoping to shift more money up into having just a really solid set of midfielders and forwards to really go all out there and focus my points there. And so just getting some budget guys who are playing, just see what happens. I have one kind of expensive player, maybe one on the verge. I've got Alba there just to try to see if I can get something from the Miami game with some of his production. Questions if they'll necessarily get the clean sheet, but looking again more at the production. Looking at Nashville, New England's been super popular, and I definitely understand I definitely understand that, especially with the inconsistencies that we've seen out of the Red Bulls. So, but mostly, I'm just kind of looking at some of these same names that we've seen with the budgets, and then kind of see how my team evolves throughout the week. And if I have any extra money, I might shift a little bit more into the back. But this one, I don't think is one you have to overthink too much. Just look for some underlying numbers and just shave some money right there if you need it. Similar names, seeing in there, clean sheet hunting is just not worth it. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
With people, that's not something. Though I have seen Steve Nate Gutman popped up in chat. I have seen him on several teams. In chat.
He's having some offensive returns, I believe, lately.
Some offensive return, and that's targeting Montreal. So that's an interesting one to see, because I'm not normally looking at Chicago for defensive options, but as you said earlier, Andrew, Montreal is one of those teams that we've been targeting early in this season, so could definitely get some results. Same thing maybe with Dallas. I mean, they got the clean sheet last week. See what happens. Sporting Kansas City, not one that's firing on all cylinders, so could be some sneaky options right there if you want to get some differentials. But maybe Ranch will have something to say about that this week in his article. But let's move on to midfielders. These were much more fun for me to look at this round. So Ashley, who are you looking at?
I'm going back to Lucho. Burned me so bad last time I picked him, but then he went up, and did you see his cute little header goal this last round? Tiny Lucho. He got up for one, and it made me happy. I like the matchup. That's why I'm going back to him. But the Lucho Musa combo, 2 rounds ago, just destroyed me emotionally. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to the hand that bit me. But I like him this week. I'm riding with Mukhtar as well. Still, I like Ojeda. I think I've had him all but 1 round so far this season. So why not? I like Hartel at home. I'm hopeful that he can return to a little better point production. And then right now, my 5th midfielder is Dreyer, for the same reason that you were talking, Reid, is just those consistent bonus points. What are the things he's doing consistently, even if he's not scoring? LAFC is a team that's been able to get scored on. Do we consider it a derby, perhaps? Because they're both California teams. I think it must be. But then my on the bubble mids, if you will, are DaCosta, BL, and Espinoza. And now I'm going to call.
All right. Andrew, while Ash is coughing, what you got?
Yeah, my top tier is pretty similar. I like Lucho, I like Mukhtar, I like Ojeda. I think amongst those, premium expensive mids, you can probably have like 3 or 4, depending on where you're putting your budget. So I also like Rusnak, who's also very expensive, and DaCosta this week. I think Portland should have a reasonable time at home against Houston. I don't know if they'll score, but if they do, I think he'll be involved. I also think there's like a few mid-tier, mid-cost from like 7 to 8.5 that I like. Beal again was one of them. I like Zinkernagel over with Chicago, especially if Gutierrez is going to sit out, if he's actually injured. I'm not sure. Santi Moreno is, reintegrated, and he could be a reasonable pick at that tier. And then a couple of kids, Owen Wolf and Quinn Sullivan, they both have been picking up their game this year, and I think they're at a reasonable price if you need somebody who's not going to cost you like 8.5, 9, 10 million. But then I have another budget pick. I like Yepe Tverskov, sorry. He had 115 passes last week, and if LAFC are going to try and do their usual countering and letting San Diego have the ball, I think he's probably going to be central to that again. I don't know if 115 passes is likely again, but as a budget pick, he's 6.7 million. He could be somebody who saves you a lot and is heavily involved in that game.
Yeah, those are some great options there. I love just the variability that you give people with, especially some people are trying to fit some budget in there. Not as bad as it was at the beginning of the season, but dropping in these big names, you gotta shave some money here or there whenever you're trying to make some of these picks. So for me, I've got a lot of similar names on my list. Some of the other ones that I'll add that you guys have not mentioned, or at least I was paying attention to something else. If you did, I would put Lobojanice on there from Atlanta. I think he did well against Cincinnati, who was on their 15th string defense right there. I mean, in any more injuries, and they're going to be giving me a call up to come in there at defense. I don't know what's happening back there. But he did well. Great number of key passes. Hasn't had as many of those before this game as the beginning of the season. So watch out the Almiron impact when he comes back, because he was missing. So that's a little dot right there to be aware of. But when he's not there, it looks like a lot of the action is coming there. And so see if he still stays involved next week. If you wanted to get that 7.6, pretty easy to get there. Kudos to you with Chicago names. I just wrote Chicago to mention some of their midfield player options for potentially taking advantage of that game. But another player I will mention who comes in under the 9 million mark there in midfield is Pashalic over with Orlando. He's like 8.8 or something. Does not have the huge numbers that Ojeda has. That's clearly the one you want to go with. But if you need to shave a couple off there, he's had some consistent returns, had some good production. He plays off on the wing, so he's not a D-mid or somebody. He plays up there on the wing, and that could be maybe a bench play that you want to do. That he's been having some good form right there as well. Otherwise, I'm seeing similar names in chat. People looking at Espinoza, people looking at Mukhtar. I do like that Acosta matchup though against Sporting Kansas City. Just betting against them. The one name that's not on my list is Cincinnati, and I think
why not? Okay.
As we've talked, Evander is getting back into form. He got that brace last week. We're going to be having more people back into the mix on the road to Nashville. But when I started looking at it, Nashville has not allowed that many shots. And I've looked on there, and they're in the bottom quarter of the league with how many shots they've allowed so far this season. They've only allowed 52 over these games. And so Cincinnati has at times struggled some to score, frustratingly. They're right in the middle in the pack of shots that they've been able to generate this season. And so I'm a little concerned about the production ability for Cincinnati, and with some of the form that Nashville has. That being said, I think Evander is still in the mix when we're talking about some of these players. Look at his price. That may knock him out. But I definitely wouldn't rule him out for this round. But it's one that I have some caution about just going in. I wish the matchup was a little bit better for me, in my opinion. Let's see here. Looking over here at chat, just see if anybody else has mentioned anything. I think we've got a lot of those names. So let's move on and start talking about forwards. Andrew, who do you like?
Well, obviously the number one name is always going to be Messi. But it sounds like he's doubtful this week, so you might want to keep a little bit of budget for him just in case he's good to go. But I think my tier one names, I've got two. I've got Kuipers and I've got Yeboah. I am a believer in Kuipers' turnaround with Greg coaching him now. He's number one in the league in non-penalty expected goals. He's number two in non-penalty expected goals per 90, just behind Baribo. And he is taking penalty kicks. So I think, and that's while playing 4 of their 5 games on the road. And to a certain extent, that may be because the Fire are playing with a weaker defense, so they're playing from behind at times. But I think he's been sharp, and I think, if you look back, he had a similar profile to Denke when he came into the league. He had 20-goal season over in, I think it was a Belgian league, and so he has like a pretty good pedigree.
Yeah.
He's a little bit older, but if maybe Greg's what he needed to turn it around, needed kind of that structure. So I like him a lot this week, especially given the matchup. I like Yeboah. He's also pretty high up there. He's number 3 in non-penalty expected goals and tied for number 3 in non-penalty expected goals per 90 with Luis Muriel. They've got a great matchup. I was a little surprised that RSL has almost given up 10 expected goals against in their games. So they're right at 2.0, which is second worst in the West. And that's even with getting to play Sounders when in that game where the Sounders were really struggling to get good chances in. So I like those two a lot. And then there's some tier 2 names I like, but I'm not 100% sold on. You've got Suarez, who had 1 really good week and 3 not very good weeks. You've got Brian White, who has been good, but also, he's been inconsistent in MLS play so far, and they're on the road to Toronto, so it's a bit of a rivalry, but I'm not sure if he'll get on the score sheet, and he doesn't really get as many bonus points when he's not there. I think Baribo and Benteke, they've been scoring a lot of goals, so they're people to consider. I don't know if they have the best matchups this week. And then Muriel and Musa are 2 I am interested in, but Musa burned me as well when I took him and Lucho a couple weeks ago. So I'm considering going right back to that against Kansas City, seeing if they can do it this time. Maybe he turns it around. But then I've got a few dart throws that I'm not really super confident about, but I could see them having really good weeks. You got Peck, Latte, Lath, Arango, and Tanny, who's pretty decent as a budget pick if you want to save on a forward who could, be right there with Yeboah and tearing up RSL.
Ashley.
I'm alive. I'm gonna try it. I want Messi to play. We referenced it. I can't remember if it was off air earlier, but they have a regularly timed game this week. So my, strategy, unless they, he comes out on the injured list or whatever, is to budget for him, and then when those 4:30 games roll around, if he's not playing, then pivot. But it's nice to actually have that option this week since we haven't for the last couple messy games. I definitely like Kuipers and Yeboah. Again, just a warning to everyone that the last time I picked Kuipers was his worst game. So, make your own decisions. But then my bubble third players, if Messi's not starting, are also Benteke. I'm not quite ready to give up on him just yet. Unfortunately, I like Chicho Arango. He's finally getting on the score sheet a little more consistently. Sounders' defense is a good defense, and they've been a decent road defense this season. But Chicho Arango likes to pick apart center backs, and I've been a little concerned about Jackson Reagan this year, which is not a sentence I ever thought that I would say. I love Jackson Reagan. Last season, for me, he was the defender of the year. But this season, he's looked just a half step off in a couple moments every game. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see Arango take advantage of something like that at home. He's not producing a ton, Chicho, but he's scored now enough that I'm considering him. And then I'm really into Latte Loth. Loth? Leif.
I mean, I say Loth, but you know me.
I just write LL whenever I'm talking about him, so I'm not in practice of saying it enough. I like him. He's scoring against everybody. He's scoring on the road. He's scoring at home. He's scoring with and without Miggy. Oh my gosh, if I had to hear them say he's the most expensive signing in MLS history one more time against Miami the other week, but he's starting to look like it. So I think that their matchup is enough that I'm definitely tempted to pick him up. So he's on the bubble for me for sure.
Is he approaching ACL territory for you? Oh no, we can't use that one. We can't use that one.
No.
That one doesn't work. Doesn't work at all.
It doesn't.
No. You guys have really covered everyone that I had on my initial list right there. I mean, the nice thing about Latte this week is that Atlanta has that good match against New York City FC. Atlanta shoots a lot, and New York City FC has been in the top third of the league, maybe top quarter, allowing shots on goal. So those stats are combining well with looking at the opportunities that he should have, especially with the service that's going to be coming back into the league. Not just Almiron, but Linnet being back in the mix of everything that's coming up there for it happens. So great little shout out for there. But you're absolutely right. Which that means you took him round 1, right, Ashley? Is that what you did? His worst round was round 1, when the only round where he has not scored or assisted.
I think it was.
So he's been doing well.
I thought he got a red card. Maybe he got a red card and they took it back.
Maybe
it was round 1 when I took him. Sorry.
There we go. But that's the chalk. I mean, this round 100%. Messi, Kuipers, and Yeboah, that is the chalk that I've just seen so many teams there. And you're looking at over 30 million right there with those players. So if you are looking for some places to shave some money, you could absolutely do it there. There's a reason people are being looked at here. Messi is the big red flag. What's going to happen? Are you going to pivot to a Suarez? Are you going to just go ahead and plan for that not to be there? With that being the 7:30 game, the only thing nice about that is if he's not in the lineup, you'll have plenty of options to pivot, but you'll need to do it within that hour, 30-minute window before those teams start to lock, or at least get him out. And if he's on the bench, you'll have to deal with that nagging thought of, but what if he comes in and gets a brace? And I'll go ahead and answer that for you all right now. Putting the captain on a player who is in the 18, but not in the 11, in my mind, is far too much risk for potential reward, even if it's Messi. That is, you have you never know what the captain's going to do, but that is just an element of chance that is not something you should be taking on as a fantasy player. There are other options that who are going to be playing that will have opportunities with a full 90. So if Messi is on the bench and you think he's going to go, put him on your bench and have an option. That's all of us have done that throughout the time that he's been in the league. We put him on the bench, had a scrub option, been like, we'll see what he does. He may come on and get a brace and an assist. Let's see what happens. So, and it has happened. He's come on and done great in the last few minutes. But it is far too risky, in my mind, to captain him if that is where your mind is at. Take it away. Take it away and go. Let's see. We're going to chat real quick. Let's see here. We got the cover there. So since we're talking about this, let's talk about captains. And as this segment has evolved, we'll start with you, Andrew. But who is your captain? And then who is your captain if Messi is not available?
Well, exactly. It's Messi or, I like the two forwards this week, Kuipers and Yeboah. I like goal scorers this year, especially at least forwards. I mean, so I think it's probably Kuipers. That's who I'm leaning towards. I don't know. I don't see any of the midfielders that have good enough of a matchup that I want to go with them. So Kuipers is who I'm looking at.
Ashley.
Can't do Kuipers for some reason. I have a deficiency in striker captaining. I don't do it enough. I don't do it well, and I don't do it enough. So when you say Messi's not playing, or whomever, when I see Messi's not playing, I immediately look at my midfield. I don't even consider someone else like Yeboah, who's home against a terrible RSL, right? I should. I think that the most consistent turn to from recent production and who they're playing this round would be to go to Yeboah, but I think that I would lean considering more of a Mukhtar or a Lucho. Lucho still hasn't gotten back to his current form, as you said so eloquently, Reid, that you might be playing for FC Cincinnati this week defensively, if they don't get it together. So I think that at home, with all of his, set pieces, PKs, etc., I think Mukhtar might be a pretty decent shout. But that's the joy of the ACM, right? Is we all do it, and then as soon as we can't, where are we going to go? So I think for me it would probably be Yeboah, but Mukhtar would be up there as well.
So for me, I am answering it's Messi right now, pending the lineups. I do not feel confident enough in Suarez to have him slot in as just a like for like swap for who I give the captain to. So if it's not Messi, I am considering another forward captain right there, and between Kuipers and Yeboah, and to me it goes to Yeboah, and that's because Yeboah's key pass numbers and his shot numbers have averaged higher than Kuipers has, and so that to me, I like both matchups, and so that being the same, where I might normally lean towards against Montreal. I like the underlying numbers that Yeboah has more there. But after that, I would look at Lucho because I do also like that match against Sporting Kansas City. And even though his shots aren't as high, his key pass numbers have been great, and I think that offsets the production that you would get in that Chicago-Montreal game. And so for me, it would be Messi, Yeboah, Lucho as right now how I would tier my three captains and the two that I would pick from if Messi ends up not playing. So and then we'll see. I may buff up a defender if Messi doesn't play with some of that extra cash that all of a sudden I find myself flush with. So we'll see what happens right there. Who would you pivot Messi to? I guess that's the question too. Is if you have who would your first target?
I think probably Benteke for me, that home game.
You see Crew.
Columbus is, I mean, Crew's a good defense, but they haven't been like the brick wall of last year or the year before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he's a decent, the one that would probably come first to my mind. He's also the closest in price, so it's an easy financial pivot. But I might also fall back on Chicho, which I hate about myself. But it's a later game, so I feel like I could do it and then not have to think about it, if that makes sense, right? Like, see what everybody else does. Maybe I need that as a scrub. I don't know.
Andrew.
Yeah, I was thinking if Messi's like declared out, then I might go Brian White. But since he's in the early game and I'd have to pivot when the lineup comes out, I'm thinking probably Musa to pair with Lucho. I know that we got burned on that a couple weeks ago, but I'm ready to get hurt again.
Yeah, that's me too. That's what I'm saying.
I think for me, I mean, I would definitely be considering Suarez as just a like-for-like swap, not for the captain, but I'd still be interested in maybe having some of that Miami coverage on the offensive side, just to see how they do against Philadelphia. So that's probably where I would be looking at as my first pivot there. But you guys have had some great
Atlanta too. So Latte.
I mean, he's right in there as well. We can see what happens. So, but yeah, those conversations will evolve as the round goes on. But I think it's a nice little exercise to kind of see where people's heads are. Very similar comments. Looking over at chat right there. Yes, Suarez could be a differential. Christian fully expects a panic text from Ashley when Messi is out. So I mean, we'll bring you that.
I'm doing that now. I'm working through it
Pre-panic.
On air now.
It's the pre-panic, so we'll get it out there. So, all right, well, good. Hope you feel as ready for that as you possibly can then. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight to review Round 6. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us to help share your insights into that. Let's wrap everything up with our plugs. Andrew.
Yeah, so I write weekly articles over at Sound at Heart going through my thoughts on the week, coming out on Fridays, typically, unless it's a double game week, then I'll probably put it out on a Wednesday. And then I'm also pretty much always on the Sound at Heart Discord, which you can get if you support Sound at Heart at the supporter level, which is $7 a month or $6.25 a month for if you subscribe yearly. And then I also want to say I've been playing a lot of NWSL fantasy this year. We've got couple different choices for it, and it's been quite a blast. I was a little frustrated this week because I had Curry from the Reign starting, but I had Jordan Bug on my bench, who had just an incredible goal, and so that lost me like 10 points. But can't expect the 18-year-olds to always score bangers.
No.
But everybody should give that a try. If you're this interested in MLS fantasy that you're watching this, NWSL has been pretty fun too.
I've already Googled it. Ashley.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, just a shout out to the Discord community and just the conversation and camaraderie we've got going on over there, and also the lovely folks behind the scenes of MLS Fantasy Insider this season, and Wojo and Christian and Tyler and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I of course will plug MLS Fantasy Boss and the Fantasy Discord. I mean, it's been so good to see everybody back this season, people having fun, all the conversation. It's been great to see the interaction with people. So be sure to check out the articles that we have coming out with just great insights from people who have been playing the game, have been doing well at playing the game, and head over to the Discord to be a part of that community chat. I mean, that's what this has been about for me, what this has been about for this community. The project is building that community where people can just come and have fun with fantasy. So if you in your highs, in your lows, this is your fantasy community you can come with and celebrate and just rant about it. And that is part of the fun. So hope to see you there. If you have any questions, feel free to hit people up. And as always, good luck.